Okay, so school is starting back up, and you're probably asking yourself, what is my school going to require about masks? Do I think masks work? Do I think masks are safe for kids? If you are on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, there are so many opinions out there, so it's important to kind of go through some things. Before we get started, I want to be clear, I'm talking about medical opinion and maybe some statistics. I am not talking about what the school board should or shouldn't do. I'm not talking about what your governor wants. I'm really talking more about the physician side of things. So the American Academy of Pediatrics has recently reaffirmed their suggestion that one of the best ways to go ahead and slow down the pandemic of the coronavirus and to prevent more people from getting it is for people to wear masks that fit right, and that does include kids in their suggestions. Now, I'll go ahead and include that statement below. I'm also going to include a general systemic review about the concept of population masking and how it happens to affect pandemic and the transmission of respiratory viruses. So that is a pretty long study. And so if you want to nerd out with me, go ahead and read through that, ask some questions below, and I'll go ahead and respond the best I can. But we'll go ahead and also include below a very important thing. I think this is really great. 5 common myths about masking. This is by 2 very intelligent pediatricians. There is a Dr. Dickerson and a Dr. Guild. They do not know me. I do not know them, but they are part of the author team on the American Academy of Pediatrics website that puts that out. They've got some really interesting things in there, including something that kind of references a study that some folks sent me just a couple weeks ago. So a couple weeks ago, there was a study that was released that was talking about, does wearing a mask make kids breathe in air that is too high in carbon dioxide? Essentially, does rebreathing their own air mess with the quality of air that kids are trying to breathe? And what that study actually tried to say, and I want you to stay tuned for spoiler, don't cut off right when I give you this information, because there's some more information coming, but what that study claimed was that the air that the kids were breathing in, that when they had their masks on, had a carbon dioxide level that was significantly higher than would be allowed in a workspace in Europe. Specifically Germany, I believe, is where they were talking about. And I believe they were saying it was like 6 times higher, the concentration of carbon dioxide. And obviously, if you put out a study that says, oh my gosh, all these kids who are wearing masks are breathing in this really high carbon dioxide air, that gets a lot of people amped up. And of course it did, because I got a bunch of messages about it. You see, one of the important parts of the scientific process is that if a study comes out and someone's trying to propose something, it has to be able to stand up to questioning. And the folks over at JAMA Pediatrics thought that the questions that were being asked were not getting good enough answers for that study to stand, and so they have retracted it. And so shout out to JAMA for facilitating a reasonable process, and when good questions were asked that don't have good answers, saying that maybe this study doesn't stand up, and trying to remove it in the interest of public health and the scientific process in general. So the short of it is this. The American Academy of Pediatrics, and quite frankly, I agree, masks will probably help cut down the transmission of COVID when kids go back to school. Whether or not your kids wear them, whether or not schools require them, it probably would cut down on disease. So do what you want to do with that.